The rain came down in sheets that November afternoon, each drop seeming to carry the weight of every broken promise the world had ever made. Sarah Mitchell sat in her idling Honda Civic at the intersection of 5th and Main, watching a woman in a threadbare coat huddle beneath the bus stop shelter, clutching a cardboard sign to her chest. The light turned green, but Sarah's foot wouldn't move to the accelerator. Something about the way the woman's shoulders curved inward, the way she seemed to be trying to disappear into herself, held Sarah frozen in place. Behind her, a horn blared, then another. But Sarah couldn't look away from those eyes that briefly met hers through the rain-streaked window, eyes that held a story Sarah suddenly desperately needed to hear. She pulled into the CVS parking lot, her heart hammering against her ribs in a way that made no logical sense. This wasn't like her. Sarah Mitchell was practical, methodical, the kind of person who meal prepped on Sundays and never deviated from her carefully plotted route home from her job at the insurance agency. She'd grown up in Columbus, Ohio, learned early that you kept your head down and your business to yourself. Yet here she was, grabbing her umbrella and stepping out into the storm, drawn toward a stranger as if pulled by invisible strings. "Excuse me," Sarah called out, approaching the bus stop. Up close, she could see the woman was younger than she'd first appeared, maybe mid-30s, with dark hair plastered to her face and a jacket that had seen better decades. The cardboard sign read simply, "Anything helps." "God bless." The woman looked up, startled, defensive. "I'm not bothering anyone. I'm just waiting for the bus." "I know," Sarah said quickly. Would you like to get a coffee? Warm up for a bit?" There's a diner across the street. Suspicion flickered across the woman's face, and Sarah couldn't blame her. Random acts of kindness from strangers were the stuff of viral videos, not real life. Why? It was a fair question, one Sarah didn't have a good answer for. "I don't know," she admitted. "I just thought, maybe you could use a hot meal. No strings. I'll buy you lunch and then you can go on your way." That's it. The woman studied Sarah for a long moment, rain dripping from both their faces. Then slowly she nodded. "Okay, but I'm keeping my bag with me." "Of course," Sarah said, relief flooding through her. They crossed the street in silence, the umbrella barely covering them both, and pushed through the glass door of Rosie's Diner, a place Sarah had driven past 1,000 times but never entered. The warmth hit them immediately, along with the smell of coffee and bacon and something sweet baking in the back. The few patrons looked up briefly, then returned to their meals with practiced disinterest. They slid into a booth near the back, and Sarah ordered 2 coffees, eggs, toast, pancakes, and hash browns, ignoring the woman's protest that she didn't need that much. When the waitress walked away, an awkward silence settled between them. "I'm Sarah," she offered. "Melissa," the woman replied, wrapping her hands around the coffee mug as if it were a lifeline. "Look, I appreciate this, but you should know. I'm not going to give you some sob story to make you feel good about yourself." The words stung, but Sarah recognized the armor in them. "I'm not asking for one. I just thought we could both use some company." Melissa's expression softened fractionally. "You always pick up strays in the rain?" "First time, actually. My therapist would probably say, I'm deflecting from my own problems." Sarah surprised herself with the honesty. "I got served divorce papers this morning. My husband decided he'd rather start fresh in Denver with a woman from his CrossFit gym than spend another day in our overpriced condo dealing with my emotional unavailability." She made air quotes, then laughed bitterly. "So here I am buying breakfast for dinner with a stranger, because somehow that feels more manageable than going home to an empty apartment and packing up 10 years of my life." Melissa was quiet for a moment. "I'm sorry. That's rough. What about you?" Sarah asked, then immediately regretted it. "Sorry, you said you didn't want to—" "It's okay," Melissa interrupted. She took a long sip of coffee. "I was a teacher. 4th grade, had a classroom decorated with planets and inspiring quotes, the whole 9 yards. Then my mom got sick, stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and I took leave to take care of her. By the time she died 8 months later, I'd burned through my savings, maxed out my credit cards, and lost my apartment. School district said I'd abandoned my position. Just like that, everything was gone. The food arrived, and they ate in silence for a while. The only sound, the scrape of forks against plates, and the low murmur of the diner around them. I've been trying to get back on my feet, Melissa continued eventually. But it's like quicksand. Can't get a job without an address. Can't get an address without money. Can't get money without a job. I've been staying at a shelter, but they have a lottery system, and tonight wasn't my night. That's why I was at the bus stop. I was trying to figure out where to go. Sarah felt something crack open in her chest. Some wall she'd spent years constructing. The spare room in my condo. It's just sitting there. My ex already moved out all his stuff. You could stay there? Just temporarily until you figure things out. Melissa set down her fork. You can't be serious. I am, actually. Look, I know this is crazy. We just met. You probably think I'm insane or trying to recruit you into a cult or something, but that room is empty and you need a place to stay, and honestly, Sarah's voice cracked. I could really use the company, even if it's just for a little while. You don't know me. I could rob you. I could be dangerous. You could be, Sarah agreed. But I don't think you are. Call it intuition, or desperation, or both. She pulled out her phone. Here, I'll text you my address. Think about it. The offer stands. Melissa stared at the phone number Sarah had scrawled on a napkin, her eyes glistening. Why are you doing this? Sarah thought about the question, really thought about it. Because a year ago, I was standing on the roof of my office building during a particularly bad day, and the cleaning lady, this woman I'd never really talked to beyond hello, came up and sat next to me. She didn't say anything at first, just shared her sandwich. Then she told me that sometimes we need to see our own value reflected in someone else's eyes to remember we matter. She saved my life that day, and I never even got her name. She transferred to another building the next week. Sarah wiped her eyes. Maybe this is my chance to pass it on. They sat there for another hour, talking about everything and nothing. Melissa shared stories about her fourth graders, the way little Tommy insisted dinosaurs could still be alive in the ocean, and how Emma wrote poetry about her cat that was surprisingly profound. Sarah talked about her dreams of opening a bookstore, something she'd pushed aside for a sensible career in insurance. They laughed, really laughed. For the first time in longer than either could remember. When they finally left the diner, the rain had stopped, and the evening sun was breaking through the clouds in brilliant streaks of orange and gold. Sarah drove Melissa to her condo, gave her towels and fresh clothes, showed her the spare room with its empty walls and possibilities. I'll start looking for work tomorrow, Melissa promised, standing in the doorway. No rush, Sarah said. Just rest tonight. Over the following weeks, something unexpected happened. Melissa did find work, part-time at first at a local tutoring center, then full-time when a teaching position opened up at a charter school desperate for qualified staff. But she didn't move out. Instead, she and Sarah developed a rhythm, a friendship that felt like it had existed for years rather than weeks. They cooked together, watched terrible reality TV, stayed up late talking about their dreams and fears and the versions of themselves they hoped to become. Sarah started taking business classes at night, researching locations for her bookstore. Melissa reconnected with friends she'd lost touch with during her mother's illness. They both went to therapy, separately and together, unpacking the trauma and learning to rebuild. 3 months after that rainy November afternoon, Sarah came home to find Melissa in the kitchen, surrounded by the smell of baking bread and candles flickering on the counter. What's all this? Sarah asked. An experiment, Melissa said. I had this idea. What if we started something, a nonprofit? We could help other people who are in the situation I was in, caught in that impossible gap between homelessness and stability. We could provide temporary housing, job placement assistance, resume workshops. We both have skills we could use. Sarah felt tears spring to her eyes. We could call it Title Her. What? Title Her? Like, give women back their titles, their identities, their dignity. Teacher, friend, sister, survivor. Whatever they need to be reminded. They still are, underneath all the hardship. Melissa crossed the room and pulled Sarah into a fierce hug. That's perfect. It took 2 years, but they did it. Title Her became a registered nonprofit, starting small with a few rooms in a converted house on the east side. They helped 12 women that first year, then 30, then 60. The local news picked up their story, and suddenly donations started pouring in. Companies offered job partnerships. Volunteers signed up in droves. But Sarah never forgot that afternoon at the bus stop. That moment when she chose to stop, to see, to reach out. Because that's what Title Her was really about, beneath all the paperwork and programming. It was about the revolutionary act of recognizing another human's worth, of offering a hand not because it made sense or was convenient, but because we all deserved to be seen in our darkest moments. On the 5th anniversary of that rainy November day, Sarah and Melissa stood in front of their new facility, a beautiful renovated warehouse that could house up to 50 women and provide comprehensive services. A reporter asked Melissa what she'd say to women who were in the situation she'd once been in, standing at that bus stop feeling invisible. Melissa looked at Sarah, then back at the camera. "I'd tell them that their story isn't over, that one person seeing your humanity can change everything. And I'd tell them that they have worth right now exactly as they are. Not when they get the job or the apartment or their life together. Right now." The reporter turned to Sarah. "And what would you say to people who are thinking about helping someone but are afraid or unsure?" Sarah smiled, thinking of that terrified woman who'd pulled into a parking lot 5 years ago, following nothing but an inexplicable pull in her heart. "I'd say do it anyway. Be the person who stops, who sees, who reaches out. You might think you're saving someone else, but really, you're saving yourself. We all need to be reminded that kindness isn't weakness, that vulnerability isn't failure, that we're all just humans trying to make it through, hoping someone will notice when we're drowning." That night after the cameras left and the celebration wound down, Sarah and Melissa sat on the front steps of the facility, watching the sun set over the city. Somewhere out there, someone was standing at a bus stop feeling invisible. Somewhere out there, someone was driving home, feeling the pull to stop, to help, to connect. And maybe, just maybe, they would listen to that pull. They would take that leap of faith. Because that's how the world changed, Sarah had learned. Not through grand gestures or sweeping reforms, though those had their place, but through small moments of recognition. Through one person choosing to see another's humanity and saying, simply, "You matter. Your story matters. And I'm here." The light was golden as it slipped below the horizon, painting everything in shades of hope and possibility, and Sarah squeezed Melissa's hand, grateful beyond words for that rainy November afternoon when everything changed, when two strangers became friends, when loneliness became connection, when a moment of courage became a movement, when they both learned that sometimes the person you save ends up saving you right back.